Have you ever felt like you were supposed to do something that just made absolutely no sense to anyone else? Something that would take years and years of work with nothing to show for it. We're about to dive into one of the most famous stories ever told about that exact feeling. I mean, just picture that for a second. A gigantic boat, miles from any ocean, under a big, blue, empty sky. It's an incredible story about faith, about ridicule, and about that one single moment that changed everything.
All right, so to really get why this project was so massive, we first have to understand the world it was built in. See, this wasn't just some random construction job. It was a direct response to a world that had kind of reached its breaking point. The story kicks off at a time when things had gotten pretty out of control. Humanity had just spiraled into chaos. People were basically just living for themselves, totally disconnected from why they were even here. The stakes were incredibly high. And right in the middle of all that noise and confusion, there was one person who was different. His name was Noah. He's described as a righteous man, someone who was walking in step with God when literally everyone else was running in the opposite direction. And he's the guy at the center of this whole incredible story. So it's to this one man, Noah, in a world that had completely lost its way, that this unbelievable, almost impossible command is given, a command that would completely define the rest of his life. He was told to build an ark. Just imagine the scene. God gives Noah the exact blueprints for this gigantic wooden ship designed to save his family and pairs of every single animal from a global flood. The only catch? The world had never even seen that kind of rain before. A flood wasn't even a concept. 120 years. That's how long it took. Just let that number sink in for a moment. For a lot of us, that's more than a whole lifetime. A century of sawing, hammering, and building, all based on a promise of a storm that showed absolutely no signs of coming. So you've got these two totally different realities happening at the same time. On one hand, the world looked at Noah and saw the town nut job, right? An old guy wasting his life on some pointless, crazy project. But in Noah's reality, he knew he wasn't just building a boat, he was obeying a command from God. He was building a rescue mission. Okay, so after 120 years of whispers, of laughter, of being misunderstood, the moment of truth finally arrives. Noah gathers all the animals, he and his family go inside, the door is sealed, and they wait. And the world outside, well, they just keep on waiting for him to fail. And this is the big question, isn't it? After a whole lifetime of obedience, against all odds, with his entire family and all those animals sealed up inside this huge wooden box, what happens next? It all started with that. Just one drop. Can you imagine the feeling of that first drop of water hitting the dry, dusty ground? A sound nobody had ever really heard before. For the world, it was probably just a curiosity. But for Noah, it was everything. It was vindication. And it didn't stay just one drop for long. No way. That one drop turned into a downpour and then a torrent. The sky turned black as the floodgates of heaven just opened up. And as the waters rose, inch by inch, foot by foot, so did the ark. And you know what? Suddenly, the laughing stopped. That storm was a catastrophic ending for sure, but it was also a brand new beginning. After all the chaos and judgment, the story shifts. It becomes one about survival, about patience, and ultimately, about hope. And, think about the incredible endurance this took. We're talking 40 days of nonstop rain, then 150 days for the waters to cover everything. They were inside that ark for over a year, before it finally came to rest on the top of a mountain. Can you even imagine that moment? The giant door creaking open, the first rays of sunlight hitting your face, the smell of clean, fresh, rain-washed air. Noah and his family, and all the animals, stepping out not into a world of destruction, but onto the soil of a new beginning. And this is where the story gives us one of the most powerful and beautiful symbols in all of human history. God makes a covenant, a sacred promise with all of humanity. And the sign of that promise? A rainbow in the clouds. A universal symbol of hope, a promise that always appears after the storm. So this is an amazing story, but it happened thousands of years ago. Why does it still connect with us so deeply today? What can we possibly take away from this ancient blueprint for our own lives? When you really break it down, Noah's story is just packed with lessons for us. It's all about what it means to be faithful when everyone around you is doubting. It shows us the power of persevering, of just keeping going when you can't even see the finish line. And it really highlights the courage it takes to do what you believe is right, even if the whole world thinks you look like a fool. And I think this just hits the nail on the head. Noah's story reminds us that what really matters in the end isn't what other people think of our work. It's whether we were obedient to the call we were given. Because when the storms of life inevitably hit, and they will, that preparation, that obedience is what's going to keep us afloat. And so that kind of leaves us with a final thought. Your ark probably isn't a literal boat. Maybe it's a business you're starting, a family you're raising, a creative project, or a personal conviction that you're building day by day. So what is that thing in your life that requires faith and perseverance, even when nobody else sees any rain coming?